So I was working with a university back in the United States, and like most universities, they publish a catalog of their courses, and they like to have a nice photo on the front of the catalog. So they have a campus photographer out taking pictures of students. Took a picture of this young lady, and thought, this is a great photo. Let's use this on the cover of our catalog. So the catalog got printed up, sent out, had this picture of this girl on the front of it. Well, it turns out the girl was in the witness protection program, and they basically outed her identity by publishing her photo on the cover of their catalog. So now I think she's being chased by the mob or something. It was shortly after that I was brought in to help them manage their hoard of digital assets. What I'm seeing out there is, it's kind of hard to see on the screen, but this is an explosion of digital assets. Everyone has an iPhone or a flip camera or a DSLR. We're creating all this content. We're uploading it to Facebook. And there's all this stuff that we're dealing with. And when we don't have ways to effectively manage and control those assets, we run into problems. So mo assets, mo problems, right? Now, where did I save that graphic? A catalog company, a retailer that I've worked with, they publish a catalog every so often. About 80% of the product shots in that catalog are of existing products. So they've had a photographer come out. They need to have the photographer come back out to shoot the remaining 20%. The problem is they can never find the photos they've already taken. So 80% of that stuff, those photos, are somewhere on a file server on a disk somewhere, but they can't find them. And it's actually cheaper just to have the photographer reshoot them than to spend the time to actually go out and find the graphics. Another story. A healthcare university. They did an internal newsletter just for employees and family and stuff like that. They had a picture of, it was one of the director's wives, and you know, she was sitting in a park under a tree. It was a nice photo, and they said, this is great, let's use this for our newsletter. So they checked, with the director and his wife. She said, oh, that's fine, you can use my photo for that. A couple months later, going through a rebrand, they are going through this new ad campaign with billboards and signs on mass transit. They were trying to rush, get this project out the door. Somebody came across the picture of this wife on a file server and said, oh, this is a great photo. Let's use this for our campaign, because if we have it and I found it, I'm allowed to use it, right? Well, you can probably see where this is going. So the director's wife, she was out for a jog in the park one day and looked up and said, why is my face on that billboard? She looks up, her face is like 40-foot blown up image of her that she had absolutely no idea that was going on. It was also shortly after that I was brought in to help with their digital asset management issue. I think this is really interesting. Is anyone in here responsible for giving out logos and graphics? Do people come to you? And it's like, oh, leave me alone, go find it yourself. But the problem is that we're kind of protective of our hoard too. We don't want to let just anyone go in there and grab what they want, because then problems such as the ones I've described come up. So we've been calling this the Rich Media Hoarders Tour, because we all have this hoard of photos and documents and videos that we're managing. And I think it's kind of interesting. I went to dictionary.com, looked up the definition of hoard: a supply or accumulation that is hidden or carefully guarded for preservation or future use. So we have this large collection of videos and assets and images and such like that we guard it because we're protective of it. We need to preserve it because people need to use it in the future. But really what I'm here to talk about is digital asset management. So what is digital asset management? According to wikipedia.org, it's kind of a boring definition: the ingestion, annotation, cataloging, storage, retrieval, distribution of digital assets. I really think of it as just being able to quickly find, organize, and convert your media files. It's digital asset management, so we say damn a lot, so it's also an endless source of pretty damn unfunny puns. For me, digital asset management, the main thing that it's going to do is it's going to help you stop searching and start finding things. So instead of going to your coworkers, looking in the cabinet for CDs, you're going to be able to go in and type in a search like a keyword and quickly find something. There's also more advanced find tools in a digital asset management system where you can specify exactly what you're looking for, perhaps based on a client name or a project name, a part number, anything you can think of. You can use that to locate assets, and we'll talk a little bit more about that type of metadata later on in the presentation. You can also create self-service web portals, which is really the answer to people bugging you for assets. You can say, go find it yourself in a portal that I've created, where you get to control what shows up in that portal and make sure that only approved, model-released assets are available for people to find and use. Also, for any, do we have any graphic designers in the audience tonight? So if you're working in InDesign, if you need to drag and drop assets, DAM solutions often have ways that you can do a quick search and then immediately drag and drop into an application for use. And really what I think is important with digital asset management is having these visual search results. When you do a search, it's not a text listing that comes up like a database, but a really beautiful view of your assets in a thumbnail format. So you can quickly find what you're looking at by seeing a preview of that type of media file. So I keep using the word asset. That's kind of a funny term, you know, digital asset management. And if you think about it, it makes sense. Again, looking at Wikipedia, an asset is anything tangible or intangible, like a file, a computer file is intangible. It's capable of being owned or controlled. We own the licensing, or maybe we've licensed the file from someone else. And it's really there to produce value, that these assets have value. We've spent time and money in creating these assets. So digital asset management helps us maximize the return on that investment by making them easy to use and reuse and find them. And this is a quote that I've heard several times at these types of shows, that it's really only an asset if you can find it, right? Because if it's hidden somewhere on a file server and you're having the photographer come back out to do a reshoot, that's not really an asset. That's more of a liability. So I mentioned metadata a little bit earlier on. Metadata means data about data. So if you have a photograph, that's kind of your core data, but there's information about that photograph, such as when the photograph was taken. A lot of digital cameras, pretty much all digital cameras, record the date and time a file was taken. We now have GPS. That's also good metadata where the photo was taken. So that's an example of metadata. So really information about rich media files. Now, metadata can be created automatically, which is very useful, where you don't have the time to sit down and type in a lot of that information. So the metadata I mentioned, the date taken, where it was taken, that can be applied automatically. Digital asset management systems can also automatically figure out metadata based on a file name or a folder name, have that be applied as keywords. So that's great, right? That's work we don't have to do. But metadata can also be entered manually by hand, where somebody sits down and types in some keywords. Oops, there we go. Or even better, what I like to do is have it entered in upstream. So if you're receiving files from a photographer or an outside source like a stock photo agency, it's great to have them enter the metadata, because then they get to do the work and then we get to benefit from having that information applied. So 3 things that we can use that metadata for. First one, just search. You can tag things, you can keyword them, and then that's great for searching. So we can search on a keyword if we're looking for a particular file. But also information about the file. So once we've found the files, what's going on in this picture? Who's in this picture? Where was this picture taken? So that's helpful after you found the file, so that you know what is the content that I'm looking at. And then also rights management. So those stories that I told earlier where we didn't have the model release. Or maybe there's copyright information. Maybe there's usage information as far as, well, we've used this 5 times in a publication. Let's not use it anymore. So tracking where it's been used, if you're allowed to use it, that information can be very important, because as we've learned in those examples, when we don't track that information using a digital asset management system, for example, we can run into problems. So there are a couple of standards in the industry for metadata. And this gets back to when I was talking about having somebody else enter in the metadata. Right now, Adobe XMP, so if anyone's using Adobe Creative Suite or Bridge, all of that information that you're entering in, such as keywords and descriptions, that's all stored as XMP metadata. There's also older standards like IPTC and EXIF. But nowadays, most everyone is using the Adobe XMP format. And when I talk about entering that information in, what we're talking about is being able to extract and embed information. So a good digital asset management system can do both. So if you receive a file, it can extract the information from it so you don't have to enter it. If you are entering it, it's going to write it back to the file. So when you send it to someone else, that information travels with the file. So if somebody in Creative Suite opens it, they're going to see that information. So here I have some practical tips for everyone in here, whether or not you're using a digital asset management system. These tips should help you get more organized with your hoard. I'm going to be talking about file naming. So I've talked about all this metadata and being able to search on it. So you might be wondering, if I'm using a digital asset management system, file names don't matter, right? I can type in keywords and find what I'm looking for. No, there's lots of good reasons why file names are still important. As I mentioned earlier, a digital asset management system can create keywords based on the file name. So if you have butterfly.jpg in your digital asset management system, that's a keyword automatically applied, the word butterfly. File names are also the original metadata. If you think about it, we have these files, we give them a name. The name of the file is data about data. And it's the most standardized metadata in the world. If you send a file to someone, they can look at it and they know what it is. So if you give it to someone outside your digital asset management system, the file name is a great way to communicate information about that image. It's pretty obvious. I think we all know that, but it's important to realize that that's still true with the digital asset management system. Sorry, my remote must be low on batteries. Here we go. Also, when you're looking at a folder inside of a digital asset management system or outside, that's going to affect how items are sorted in the folder. So if you wanted to sort based on a date and time taken, then you could have that data in the file name, and then when you do a sort, that's going to affect how things are sorted. There's also some advantages to having uniquely named file names. What I often recommend when people are renaming files is to use today's date and then their initials, and then a sequential number starting from 0, 001, 002. And what you're really trying to do with that file naming convention is make sure that all of your files have unique names. And this isn't really an issue with digital asset management technology, but when you send that file to someone else and they come back with a question, they can say, oh, remember when you sent me 0102 2013 underscore ES 005, you can then go back and look at that. As opposed to, oh, do you remember when you sent me that untitled.doc? Or remember when you sent me that photo DSC underscore 001? You probably have 20 or 30 of those because they're not really unique. So there's a good way to link back to the original file by having uniquely named file names. Anyone recognize this? Anyone tell me what this %20 means? Do we have any web developers in the room? Space, that's right. So when you're on the web doesn't really work well with spaces. So those spaces get turned into %20. When you're thinking about your digital asset or your file naming strategy, keep that in mind. I mean, it's okay to have spaces in your file names. Most computer systems nowadays work with that. But just know that if those files are on the web, those spaces are going to look kind of funny. It might be difficult for people to read those file names. If you're in a cross-platform environment, Mac versus Windows, the Mac lets you use certain characters that Windows machines freak out about. They don't handle these characters very well. I don't expect you to memorize that, but if you do go to damlearningcenter.com, you can get a copy of this, not this presentation, but I have a file naming convention article. By the way, Damn Learning Center is spelled the wrong way. The center is spelled ER at the end. There was a little typo when we registered the domain. So we talked a little bit about file names. Anyone in here use folders? Come on, you all should be raising your hand right now. You guys still awake? So I want to tell you a little bit about some tips that I've learned with organizing files into folders. As I mentioned earlier, keywords can be generated automatically if you're using a digital asset management system, not only on the file name, but also your folder name. So what I like to do when I'm working with organizations getting started with DAM, we figure out a good folder structure. We think about what the top level folders are going to be, and then what goes inside of those folders, and then what goes inside of those subfolders. And what that's allowing them to do is when they go and they file things in those folders, if they're using that automatic keywording technology, they're automatically applying keywords just by putting them in the right folders. Folders also help people that are accessing the files directly. A lot of times the digital asset management system can watch a folder and monitor it for changes and then provide a search interface. But at the same time, someone else could go directly into those folders and access the files inside of them, or maybe they're saving files into those folders. So that folder structure also helps people access and save files into that directory. So if you make sure you have a good folder structure in place, it's a little bit more easier for people saving and retrieving files directly from the folder. There's also another level of organization there. Digital asset management systems have galleries, which are like virtual collections, where like a playlist in iTunes, you can drag items into a gallery, share that gallery with other users. But a lot of DAM systems have the ability to look at those folders, and that gives you another level of organization. Now be careful with folders, because when you're categorizing things by folders, in database terms, folders are a unique, a single value. And what I mean by that is you really only want to put file in one folder. If you put it in more than one folder, then you're duplicating data, and that just causes confusion. So if you have a folder called people and a folder called buildings, and you have a picture of the president of the company standing in front of the headquarter building, do you put it in the building folder, or do you put it in the people folder? You wouldn't want to put it in both. And as I mentioned earlier, DAM systems can watch these folder structures, and that can provide a place for people to upload to the DAM. You just tell them, put them in this folder. That's going to automatically be cataloged into the DAM system. They may not even know that. They just know that they go to this folder, they put the file in the folder, the DAM system picks up on it, extracts that metadata, and makes it searchable. There's also a certain amount of truth to a folder. So if there's a file in a folder, you get that path, and you can tell someone it's on this server, and this folder, and this subfolder, and it's a very just true location of where something is located. So keep in mind that folder, the way that you structure the folder hierarchy, you're really setting up a final resting place, not necessarily final, but a place for those files to live so that somebody can go back and find them in that folder. Because a DAM system can help you search based on keywords and such like that, but that path is the true location to the file. So really the issue here when I say, do you really want to hold, what is that, 4,294,000,000? That's the maximum number of files you can have in one folder. So it's kind of the same question. Do we really need subfolders? If I'm using a DAM system, do I really need to put things into subfolders? I can just search everything based on a keyword. While you can put that many files in a folder, I wouldn't recommend it. I've seen folders with 40,000 files, and you open it like in a Windows Explorer in the Finder menu, and it just sits there and churns forever as it's trying to figure out what's in that folder. So it's definitely good to have some structure and not have that many files in one folder. So some best practices for folder hierarchy. So I talked about when I work with organizations and we figure out what our folder hierarchy is, what those folders and subfolders are. It's good to take a snapshot of that and put it aside. This is really helpful where you have a folder structure that's based on a year. So let's say we have a 2013 folder. Inside there is a projects folder, and then maybe also a stock folder. And you get this folder hierarchy that needs to be replicated for 2014. And then you don't want to go back and recreate all those folders and subfolders. So if you take a snapshot or basically just copy-paste your folder structure before you start putting items into it, then you have that as a template that you can start from the next time around when it's the next year. There's also what I call folder direction. So you have to figure out what order do the folders come. If I go into the folder structure, do I come across the year first? Or maybe I come across projects, and then inside of projects is the year. And then inside of there. So which comes first when you're figuring out that folder hierarchy? Now, who here is guilty of this? I think you are. You put the space in the front of the file name or the folder name or the underscore to get it to float to the top because it's in alphabetical order. And you think you're so clever when you figure that out, right? But then somebody else comes in, they're looking for the projects folder, which is now called underscore projects. So they're like, okay, the P section, oh, it's not there. I better create the projects folder. So now you have underscore projects and projects, and then you have a big mess on your hands. And as I mentioned earlier, it's a unique value. You don't want to put the same file in more than one folder. Also, when I go on site, working with organizations and digital asset management, the DAM system can often look at a folder, synchronize it, catalog, and that's very helpful for getting up and running very quickly with DAM. But sometimes we say, you know what, you guys got a mess on your hands, let's just start over. And I'm not saying throw away everything. I'm saying let's stop where we are now, put that aside. This is the legacy archive, the old projects. We're going to keep that for when we need it, but starting fresh with a new, clean, logical folder structure. And it's much more cleaner that way. And then you can kind of have a separation of the old crazy way and the new, still crazy, but less crazy way. So some file format considerations. One of the nice things about digital asset management is that you don't have to have a bunch of software on your computer to preview a file. Creative Suite is somewhat expensive. You can't really afford to give Creative Suite for Photoshop and Illustrator to everyone in the company. But with digital asset management, they can very quickly preview the file without having to open it in Photoshop or even have Photoshop installed on their system. So another nice thing with DAM is that you can convert out files in other formats as needed. And this is actually a really good best practice for digital asset management. Whatever the highest quality file that you have available, that's what you want to hold on to, keep that, and then make other derivative versions or versions in other formats as needed. And I've worked with so many people where a part of their workflow is, okay, before we save this, let's make a JPEG version. We also need a print-ready version. And you save out all these different files, and then maybe 2% of those files ever get used, so it's a huge waste of time. With DAM, you just save the highest. Whatever the best quality that you have, that's what you hold on to, and then you save out derivative versions as needed. We're running short on time, so I'm going to try to go through this fairly quickly. If you're doing video, you may need a little bit more processing power on your server and a little bit more disk space. That metadata embedding, not all formats support metadata embedding. If you're working with photography, those camera raw files don't often always support embedded metadata. Adobe has a DNG format that's much more flexible in terms of metadata. Some older Mac files don't cross-platform very well, like PostScript fonts and older Quark documents. Now, this is a screenshot of a DAM system showing a batch conversion preset. And this goes back to the idea of save the highest quality file available, save out derivatives as needed. And in this case, the administrators created very easy templates so that a user can go in and say, I need something for PowerPoint, I need something for the web, and it's going to give the right file format depending on the use that's required. And they just need to know they click on what they need. The system gives them the file in the right format. So if you're wanting to get started with digital asset management, here are some tips on making the business case for getting justification, for getting budget for a digital asset management system. Saving time is the obvious benefit here. Not wasting time finding and converting assets. And of course, saving money because, hey, time is money. If we can save money, if we can save time, we're saving money. And even increasing revenue. So being able to monetize your asset collection by selling it on the web, or if you can find it, then you can sell it. If you can't find it, you can't sell it. And I think the most important is just making your life easier, not being so frustrated with all this stress involved in managing your hoard of digital asset management. So some recommendations. Make sure you involve your IT department. I've seen a lot of people that wait until the last minute to involve IT. They're really your resource. You should use them. Don't bring them in at the last minute. Also getting... in addition to IT, your stakeholders, other people that feel the pain in your organization, those are the people you want to get on board and have them help you make the case. And I brought a picture of some stakeholders from my organization. when I do barbecuing. When you're looking at a DAM system, make sure you're focusing on solving features, solving problems, not buying features, because DAM vendors will love to tell you about all these awesome features that they have. You don't really care about judging the DAM beauty contest. You want to solve your business problems. So make sure that you and the DAM vendor are focusing on solving problems, not trying to be wooed with the latest and greatest features. If you're looking at a system, make sure you try it before you buy it. Very at least get a demonstration of the application so you can see what it looks like, so you can verify it is solving the problems that you have. Don't try to fix everything at once. Start small, build on those small successes, and then make sure you have a chance to step back and look where you've come and reflect and refine on top of that. So, we're always so busy. Once we get done with one project, we're ready to move on to the next. And just as with anything else, it's important with digital asset management to evaluate what you've done so far. So if you'd like to learn more, you can follow me on Twitter. I'm DAM Geek. I also have this website called DAM Learning Center, where I post digital asset management tips and tricks. Any questions? Yes?
What's the main differences between digital asset management and marketing resource management systems?
So the question was, what's the difference between digital asset management and marketing resource systems? So marketing resource management systems. So I'm not actually familiar with that. There's so many different categories. What would you describe marketing asset management, and then maybe I could, or marketing resource management, maybe I could compare and contrast?
Basically a system for managing your marketing resources across all different channels, platforms, countries.
Oh, okay. Sure. Sure. Yeah, so with digital asset management, I would say it's more about actual files that are graphics, videos, documents, not so much emails or other non-file-based assets, if that makes sense. Yeah, and it's also it's not as specific as marketing resource management. There could be scientific application or use within a museum or use within academia or anyone with a large hoard of digital assets or lots of photos and pictures and images and such. Thanks.